I believe that I am better than 90% of the people in Esotericism. My power began to manifest through incredible results. I came to this earth to remember who I am. Esotericism, magic, extrasensory perception. This is the territory of power. That's it. We urgently buy tickets. We're flying out tomorrow. The next day they announce mobilization. I'm a natural hypnotist. Men are afraid of women like me. They're afraid that I can read their thoughts, what's inside them. I consult with my spiritual mentors. I truly want my students to become stronger than me.
Natasha, I actually want to start with the main thing. You recently said something to me that honestly left me stunned. You said, I'm the best in esoterics. In esoterics?
Yes, I really do think so. I believe that I'm better than 90% of the people in esoterics. And that's the truth. Well,
Natasha, that sounds rather arrogant. There's even a deadly sin called pride. It doesn't seem appropriate to me, especially in spiritual circles, to make such bold statements.
Pride, arrogance, that's more in the realm of religion. But esoterics, magic, extrasensory perception, that's the territory of power.
What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that in religion, a person is God's servant who can only ask God, pray. But what is prayer essentially if not asking? God, give me this, that first, money, a husband, and so on and so forth. But a mage doesn't ask anyone for anything. He works on his own. He creates his own results himself.
But where does such confidence come from then? Isn't that basically like saying, I am God? Where does such self-importance come from, you could even say?
My self-importance, of course, comes from my results. I really do live the way I teach. And first and foremost, I see these results in my own life, and I see them in the lives of those who learn from me. That's why I can say for sure that I am stronger.
Natasha, but on this earth, we're all still kind of learning all of this, aren't we?
Yes, that's a very common position, that we're all here to learn. And actually, it translates to, I want to avoid responsibility. I'm just learning. And that's exactly why the results are what they are. In fact, esoteric practitioners who say things like that just don't want to acknowledge their own power, and they simply want to remain eternal students. I can say that I'm not here to learn. I came to this earth to remember who I am. And as soon as I remembered who I am and who I was, in my past incarnations, my power began to manifest through incredible results.
For example, interesting.
Yes, I'll share a few stories, for example. Here's the first story. Moscow, September 2022. That month, I flew to Moscow on business related to banks and cards. And it so happened that I caught COVID. I was bedridden with a high fever, and it also turned out that one of my employees was in Moscow at the same time on his own business. So I'm lying there with a fever, and then I get a message. Urgently buy tickets for yourself and Maxim and fly to Moscow. I called Maxim and said, Maxim, that's it. We need to buy tickets urgently. We're flying out tomorrow. He starts looking and says, the tickets are so expensive. Let's wait. Let's look for something else. Are you not feeling well? I said, no, we're buying them right now. I open the website myself and buy 2 tickets. So the next day we fly out. And then the day after that, they announce mobilization and ticket prices go up. Just like that, prices shoot up. Everyone starts buying tickets. Total chaos and panic begin. And at that moment, we're already in Turkey, a day before all that happened. After that, Maxim never doubts me when I say something. And that's what sets me apart. I don't doubt myself. If I get a feeling like we need to buy tickets, someone else might say, it's probably just a fever. I'm delirious. But no, I always firmly believe in what comes to me, in the information I receive.
So you actually see it, like people say, visions come to you. Are they really that clear?
Sometimes I do get visions, but usually the visions I get are about the past. I've had a lot of visions where I clearly saw my past lives. When I get a hint, it usually doesn't come as a vision, but more like a direct instruction, like buy the tickets. For myself and for Maxim, literally, just like that, without any images.
And before our interview, you were telling me about your daughter, your story. Can you tell us more about what actually happened there? Is it true that she really lives without any medication at all?
Yes, the thing is, her appearance is directly connected to esotericism. I'll tell you a bit about that too. So how did I even start my journey into esotericism? It started with the fact that I couldn't get pregnant. That was my personal drama. And I tried a lot of things. I tried medicine too. And eventually I ended up at a meditation, and there I manifested that I would have a daughter. And I pictured a blonde little girl in my mind. And soon after that, I went to another meditation. And there, when I went deep, we were supposed to ask a question. And when I asked my question, I asked why I couldn't get pregnant. And I ended up having a whole dialogue. I honestly had no idea with whom. But in that dialogue, I kind of made an agreement that when I have a child, I won't impose my opinions. That was the agreement. And later, I realized that this was an agreement directly with my daughter. She is quite independent herself, an unusual girl. And at the same time, during that period, so soon after that meditation, I got pregnant. And at the same time, that's when I started getting interested in Reiki. And I'm the kind of person who went to a Reiki master throughout my entire pregnancy. And when I gave birth, I got this insight that I needed to learn Reiki myself. So I learned Reiki myself. And from her very first days of life, I gave her sessions every day. Every time I held her in my arms, I would fill her with energy. And I worked a lot specifically to make sure I had a healthy child. Those were the intentions I set. And yes, in fact, she lives without any medication. Not because I'm some crazy mom who leaves her child without help. She really gets sick very rarely. And if she does, it's in a very mild form. So there was never any real need for medication. And there was this one time she was already quite grown up, 9 years old, and she went to a summer camp. And it so happened that she caught a virus there and developed a fever. So they started offering her a pill to bring down the fever. She started refusing it. They began to pressure her. And she said that at home she's treated differently. And when they called me, at first they thought she was lying, making it up. I said, yes, please let her rest in her room. I'll work with her myself. They were really surprised. But they did as I asked. I worked with her, and they came back an hour later. They measured her temperature 5 times. There was no fever at all, and the child was absolutely healthy. That's how energy healing works. I want to say that this isn't a recommendation. I'm not saying you absolutely have to do it this way, but this is how it works for me. And for my child, it's more of a preventive measure. That is, from her very first days, I have been working on her energy so that she has a strong immune system and can handle any viruses or threats on her own. And
did you get sick as a child at all?
As for me, I practically lived at the children's clinic when I was a kid. I was constantly sick, and even at university, I was always coming down with various viruses. Even as an adult, I got sick, especially when I worked in an office. I myself, yes, took a lot of pills too, and when I started practicing, I made a personal decision to stop. To stop taking pills, to stop taking antibiotics, and that I would only heal myself using my own skills, my energy practices. And the same goes for my husband, Valerie. He made this decision at the age of 50. And before that, he also took a lot of different pills. And our family at this point has completely given up on medication. We work with energy. And even if we catch a virus, we only use energy to heal. And I have to say, it didn't happen right away, but we also started getting sick much, much less often. And generally, we manage to deal with any viruses at the early stages. Usually, and we get sick very rarely, no more than once a year.
How interesting. So, it turns out that if an esoteric practitioner claims to know Reiki, but in reality their children are getting sick, then maybe they're not really doing what they say, right?
Well, maybe they don't have enough power, or the person is just deceiving others. That is, many people make this distinction. Like, for example, I go there. I come to a practice, do something, work with someone, but the fact that my child is constantly at the clinic taking handfuls of pills, that's also considered normal. The fact that I take a whole bag of pills with me on vacation is also seen as separate, meaning the practices are one thing and life is another. That's why I consider myself a strong esoteric practitioner, because I don't have this separation. For me, magic, extrasensory perception, healing, it's not a game. I live exactly the way I teach. I believe in what I do. I believe in my healing power. I believe in my magical power. I believe in my extrasensory abilities. And I don't need to prove anything to myself. I just know that it exists.
You also told me an interesting story that during your practices people fall asleep. In the morning they literally just pass out completely. You know,
This was actually a complete surprise for me. And I really noticed it and was amazed when I was conducting a large online practice session live. It was about money and relationships. There were quite a lot of people there, about 150. And it turned out that a lot of people literally passed out. There were even some who fell off their chairs. I had no idea I had such an ability. And it took me a while to understand it. But it turned out that I'm a natural hypnotist. And I only found out about it when one of my clients told me. For a long time, I couldn't figure out who I was or what I was doing. I saw that it worked. I saw that people were being helped in my practice, but I didn't understand how they were being helped or what my strength was. And so I had this one interesting client who told me, Natasha, this is hypnosis. I said, no, it can't be hypnosis. I've never studied hypnosis. She said, well, I don't know. I've been hypnotized before, but that hypnosis was really weak, just nonsense. But with you, the hypnosis is very strong. And that's when I realized I was a hypnotist, and I went and got trained. I completed the full course and received a diploma from the London School of Clinical Hypnosis. So I'm very glad I did it, because it's not so much that they taught me hypnosis, but at least I learned how it works. And I learned about all the modern developments in hypnotherapy that have been made. In fact, if you look at the history of hypnosis, hypnosis used to be considered magic. And so since I'm a powerful mage, it's no surprise that I possess hypnosis as well. It's just that later, psychology and hypnotherapy were separated from magic as their own fields. But before, it was all considered magic.
Yeah, I also fall asleep sometimes during your practices. I've listened to them a couple of times. I actually wanted to ask you, is it normal that I fall asleep during the practices? Specifically during your practices, why does it have that effect?
Not only is it normal, it's actually good, because real transformations and changes happen at the subconscious level, not in the mind. And sometimes, in order for me to create a true transformation, I need to completely disconnect a person's consciousness and fully immerse them in a trance. In reality, you're not actually falling asleep. That's a misconception. There are different states. There's trance and there's sleep, and they are very similar. So it may seem like you're falling asleep, but it's actually very easy to wake someone from a trance. I always do this at the end of the practice. Now, after learning that some people end up sleeping until the next day, I always make sure to wake everyone up at the end. Not only is it normal, it's actually very beneficial. Because many people think that if they can't hear, if they're not concentrating or controlling, then it's not working. In reality, it works even better because it's even deeper. I work with them on the subconscious level.
Do other esoteric practitioners experience this?
Well, at least I've never encountered anything like that. Sometimes people fall asleep during meditation, yes, but with me, they actually just completely zone out. I rarely do sessions in person, but when I did, by the end, there wasn't a single person left awake. Everyone was out cold, not a single one was conscious. And
tell that story about the guy who was rude to you and you...
Well, actually, there are quite a lot of stories like that. Men are often rude to me. I think it has to do with a very deep-seated fear. It's like the fear of witches, probably, something very archetypal. But in this particular case, yes, there was an incident where I managed to stand up for myself right away, so to speak. One day, a girl from my team and I went to a blogger festival, a blogger get-together. There were a lot of different bloggers there, both famous ones and entrepreneurs. There was both formal and informal communication. And so we were sitting in the evening and he asked me, so what do you do? I said that I teach extrasensory perception and channeling. He said, well, what is that? With this kind of attitude, like, isn't that just nonsense or something? I said, well, do you want me to show you? Back then, I still didn't really know how to explain it properly in words. It was easier for me to just show it. He said, well, go ahead, show me. So I tuned into him, closed my eyes, and my friend was sitting next to me. This is my friend. So I tune into him. I start scanning and I say, I feel a lot of fear in you. And this fear is because you're confused, and you're confused because you think too much, aren't you? You're lying. I said, you're lying to some woman. I hear this strained voice. I think I'll go now. I open my eyes and he's sitting there as white as a sheet. And right away, he basically took off from there. And later I found out that he was at that event with a woman. And it turned out that this woman was actually his lover. At that moment, of course, everything fell into place for me. Why he lies so much? And yes, I think that's also why men are afraid of women like me. They're afraid that I can read their thoughts, what's inside them. I really can read minds.
And how do you know that at all? How do you read them? That?
It's very easy. I tune in and read them. How do you tune in? So when I tune into a person to read them, at that moment, it's like I connect with that person. In other words, I become them for a while. That is, I need to merge with them for this. So when I merge with them, it's like through myself, I feel, what I think. I can feel what hurts them. And once I've read all of that, I disconnect. Actually, I usually use this for healing, to be honest. So you merge with the client, you understand everything that's going on with them, and you can work with that. That is, when I work with people, even with a group of people, I work as if through myself. I merge with these people and heal as if I were healing myself. But in reality, it's them I'm healing. That's how it works.
All right, since we're talking about divinity and money, many esoteric practitioners are afraid to take money for their work. What can you say about that? How is your relationship with money?
I think that's really bad. The idea that esoteric practitioners shouldn't take money, I think that's manipulation. Specifically, manipulation from dark forces. It's based on a lie, like someone supposedly gave you a gift for free, and so you should help everyone for free. But there are different kinds of gifts. For example, someone bakes cakes. Why shouldn't they bake cakes for free and give them away? Or, for example, someone is a doctor. Someone repairs shoes. Someone is a teacher. For some reason, everyone gets compensated for the work they do well. But for some reason, it's specifically esoteric practitioners who are supposed to do it for free. That just doesn't add up for me. So the second thing is, I can say that I'm proud of the fact that I earn a lot specifically from esotericism. I believe that this shows that I am indeed a strong practitioner. And I think that the stronger the practitioner, the more money they should have, not the other way around. Because I remember times when that's exactly how it was. Why should a person who possesses tremendous power, who has high intelligence and remarkable abilities, why should they earn so little? I don't understand. Usually, if an actor or an artist or a director is talented and does something skillfully, they usually earn a lot. It's the same in esotericism.
Yeah, you had a situation like that when your money for buying a house got frozen, right? What do you do when you face such financial problems?
Yeah, it was quite a difficult situation. My husband and I really wanted to build a house in Turkey in a very special place. We bought land in a bay. It was a long process. It took a long time to get the permits, and we had money set aside for building the house. But I invested it in foreign currency stocks. And then, as we all know, 2022 comes around. Sanctions start being imposed. And basically, it turns out that this particular bank and these specific stocks get frozen. So we got the building permit. We had already signed the contract with the team that was going to build, but we had no money. And we had to figure out a way out of it quickly. I immediately turned to channeling and asked what to do, how to get out of this situation. I got a hint that I should focus on my other project. For more than 10 years, I've had another business called Emigration to Australia and New Zealand. And indeed, I started doing exactly as the information was coming to me. And that year, there was a huge demand for services. Naturally, people wanted to move out of Ukraine. Mobilization started in Russia. Everyone wanted to move as well. Many people were leaving. And I worked a lot that year. It was incredible. We built the house, the money was found.
Wow, that's amazing. So you literally asked the universe, you asked, and it told you what to do. That's crazy. Like you literally received this message from above.
Yes, I think a lot of people get these kinds of messages. It's just that not everyone listens. Usually people get some kind of hint and start doubting, like, is it really so? Is it really true? Should I really do this? They go around asking again and again. I don't ask again. If I get a hint, I act on it right away. There's also, it's a matter of speed, how quickly you act on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Really interesting. Well, you're such an experienced master. Who do you go to for advice yourself? Still, you must have a teacher, right? Who did you learn from? Who do you ask now? Advice?
Well, let me tell you a bit of the backstory. Of course, when I was just starting out, I was learning, I took courses. Mostly these were English language courses. I took what was popular at the time, because back then I didn't really understand who I was, and I didn't remember or realize my own abilities. I also had a Russian-speaking teacher, but that story ended in great disappointment for me. We actually became quite close, and you could even say we were friends, and he really let me down. Since then, I realized that I'm already a self-sufficient master, and I don't need to consult anyone. And if I do seek advice, it's not from people living on this earth. That is, I consult with my spiritual mentors. I have several mentors. They, let's say, advise me on various topics. First and foremost, of course, is Merlin. I've had a long-standing relationship with this teacher. I've known him for a very long time, and we're very close. He has helped me, for example, in creating my course, Druid Magic. I also have a relationship with a teacher like Thoth, the Egyptian god Thoth. He has given me such tools as the 7 rays of divine enlightenment, the 7 keys. He has performed certain initiations for me. I consult with him about, for example, everything related to Egyptian magic. I also have a Tibetan teacher. His name is Padmasambhava. Together with him, we created the product Tibetan Reiki Bon. And of course, I attract many such powerful teachers when I conduct initiations and practices. They help me a lot. I also have other contacts, but mostly it's topic-based.
All right. So it turns out you receive answers directly. Aren't you afraid to take actions in real life that just come to you? After all, we live in a material world and every action carries its own responsibility. How do you even decide to do this? How did you come to this?
Well, you do need a certain courage here, but I see that the more I act this way, the more I materialize what comes to me, the better my life becomes. I also remember when things were different, when I lived from my mind, the way I was taught in school in the Soviet Union, the way I was taught by my parents, and what kind of results I had. I can see what results I have now when I listen specifically to what comes to me through channeling. So before I started acting this way, who was I? I was an office worker, my personal life wasn't working out, and I was infertile. And the more I immersed myself in channeling, in magic, in my abilities, since then I have given birth to my long-awaited daughter, and I have finally built a happy relationship. I have finally started having money, and not just living paycheck to paycheck, but in decent amounts. Of course, why shouldn't I do that? Well,
Okay, so you've told us everything, but isn't it a bit much to say that you're better than everyone else? Isn't that kind of narcissism like really strong?
for a long time I acted from my rescuer subpersonality. Well, dear viewers, that we have a lot of different parts of our personality. For example, you might have a rescuer subpersonality that wants to save everyone at any cost. You might have an imposter, you might have a perfectionist, a critic. And so when I sorted out all these parts of my personality, I discovered a narcissistic one among them, a part that I hadn't noticed before. You could say it's a shadow part. By the way, I've always been very modest, always. I had low self-esteem, a lot of self-doubt, a strong inner critic, and imposter syndrome. And so after I worked through all of this, I accepted that narcissistic part of myself. And I believe that's also one of my strengths, because I can accept those parts that not every esoteric practitioner is ready to accept. And it's precisely this narcissistic part that's the blogger in me. Because a blogger can't be a good blogger if they don't have that in them.
All right, okay. Well, nowadays every other esoteric says, I'm great, I'm a guru, I'm a master. So what sets you apart from them?
Of course, my results. Because talking is one thing, but actually achieving something outstanding is another. Delivering results. Delivering results. Not just for myself, well, for myself first and foremost, of course, but also for my students. I know a lot of teachers and gurus who limit their students so much that essentially they make them dependent on always coming to them and asking how they should act, how they should live. Come to me regularly for cleansing, and I'll cleanse you. Come to me and ask whether something is right or wrong. On the contrary, I teach my students to open their own channel, their own channeling, to discover their own power, their true nature, rather than just coming to me for cleansings, for answers to their questions, or for hints. On the contrary, I want there to be many strong practitioners. I truly want my students to become stronger than me.
Oh, well, for this interview, Natasha, you'll probably get stoned. Aren't you afraid?
Hate?
Yes,
I can say that this is also a certain path. Of course, when I started as a blogger, it was me to some extent who was hurt and upset by this. But I also understand that every person why do people hate? For example, let's say a person also feels this ability within themselves, and they would also like to sit like this in a villa in Bali, yes, with feathers. And they would also like to proclaim that they're the best esoteric, better than everyone else. But they can't allow themselves to do that. Why can't they? Because they're an imposter, because they're a critic, because they're a savior. And then there's this devaluer, yes, the devaluer. And of course, it's infuriating. I understand why people hate. It's infuriating. How can she allow herself to take money, to make statements, and even record videos? But why? Because you would like to do it yourself. Because you don't acknowledge your shadow side. But if you acknowledge it, you'll be able to do it too.
all right, all right. But I think there are a lot of esoteric practitioners who are in this kind of position. So who is your message today for? Are you attracting them or someone else?
I am speaking to those who feel the ability within themselves, who feel the strength, who can admit, yes, I also want success. I want recognition. I want to earn money with my abilities and live well. And maybe for now, they're a bit afraid or embarrassed about it. But I want to show that all of this is possible for people like that you can handle it. And you can also become a recognized esoteric specialist.
All right. And what would you say to those who say this? That's it, she's gotten arrogant, thinks she's someone special, just another one. None of the predictions come true. In general, it's all not true.
I want to say that, of course, this interview is not for them. Everyone can believe in what they want. Everyone can have their own opinion. For example, I don't go around writing hate comments to anyone if their opinion is different from mine. People can have different opinions. So this just isn't for them. Let them look for their own path. Let them find a teacher who hasn't become arrogant.
All right, let's do one more thing before we finish. You have some amazing traits and abilities. Can you list those in whom these abilities are awakening and who feel inside that they're ready so they can somehow identify themselves?
Yes, of course, I know these signs by heart. These are the people who come to me. Strange dreams. If you have dreams, events that come true, or if the deceased visit you in your dreams, that's a sign your gift is awakening. If you keep seeing numbers everywhere on clocks, repeating or mirrored numbers, these are already hints the universe is giving you. If you feel energies, the presence of people or places, if animals, cats, dogs are drawn to you and come up to you everywhere, or children, if people often come to you for advice, if your advice seems to help them or even just listening to them makes them feel better, like when someone shares their thoughts and feels relieved. Next, if you often predict when someone is about to call you, or you sense who it is before you even look at the screen. Or on the contrary, you think about someone and suddenly they call you or show up. If it often happens that someone offends you and then something terrible happens to that person, even though you did nothing about it, it's as if the universe itself is punishing them. If you often get goosebumps as a response, as if confirming that yes, this information is true.
If you often feel like someone is with you, even when you're home alone, for example in the dark, as if someone else is present and watching you, that's all for now. We were joined by Natalia, the founder of the International Academy of Super Abilities. We'll leave links to her products and to the Druid Marathon in the description. Could you tell us a little more about it?
This is in fact the first serious product I've created. It's called Druid Magic. I didn't create this product just for the sake of it. Actually, even though I say that money is important to me, my project isn't about the money. The original idea behind creating it was to spread secret knowledge in the world, knowledge that has been forgotten, lost, and can't be obtained in any other way except through channeling. And it was Merlin who entrusted me with this project. For this, I even traveled to England to the Druid power sites where I did channeling. And it's truly a very powerful product. These are genuine secret teachings. It's designed for an entire year, for 12 months, and it contains 24 circles with real initiations. Since it's very important to spread this knowledge right now, literally in 2025, when I traveled to Peru, to Machu Picchu, I had a very important channeling session with Pachamama, with the Earth Mother Goddess, and she strongly asked me to spread this knowledge. That's why, in addition to this big course, I also created a mini course where I explain in more detail what Druid magic is, just to provide some general information. The course is very useful. There's also a book called Druid Magic, and it contains a helpful practice. So be sure to follow the link and check out my mini course.
Well, I guess that's all for now.